All right. I want to welcome all of you to our PolarConnect event. We're excited to have the technology working with us today. We have Dr. Lougheed and Ruth Rodriguez up in, now let's see if I can get this right, Utqiaġvik, Alaska, formerly known as Barrow, Alaska. We will be hearing all about their really interesting project that they've got going through the University of Texas in El Paso. I'll leave it up to them to explain what ROAM2 is all about in a little bit. Before I turn the presentation over to them, I want you to get familiar with this platform, what we're using. It's called Adobe Connect. And you can see that there's a list of participants, and we have our presenters up using the webcam today. We'll see how that goes for them. There's an area that you can post your questions and say hi and welcome. And at the end of this event, we will have an archive that we'll post online, and we'll share with you both if you registered as well as post on the website of for PolarTREC. Today, I will be hosting this event. My name is Janet Warburton, and I work with Judy Fonstock, and we'll both be running the behind the scenes for Adobe Connect here and this presentation. As you go through, as we are sitting here and I'm introducing PolarTREC, it'd be great if you could tell us where you're all from. So in the chat area, not only can you post questions, but you can tell us where you're coming from, and if you have any students or if you have any others with you that are at the presentation today, that would be great. So Ruthie is part of the PolarTREC program, Teachers and Researchers Exploring and Collaborating. It's run by a not-for-profit company out of Fairbanks, Alaska called Arctic Research Consortium of the United States. PolarTREC is funded by the National Science Foundation, and we put teachers out with researchers like Dr. Lougheed and in the field, and we they have an opportunity to work with them and learn about science and take that back into their classroom. Ruthie and this team, you will see, have a little bit of a twist on their project where they have some undergraduate students that have also joined the research that is being conducted out of Alaska. The questions. During this presentation, it would be easiest if you just type your questions as we go along in the chat box. And between the research team and Judy and myself, we'll try to track those questions and make sure that they can respond to them as we go along and also at the end. If we have the opportunity, you can ask your questions live at the end by turning on your microphones. Okay, I think that's my spiel, so I'm going to turn this over to you, Ruthie and Vanessa. So go ahead.
Cool. So my name is Ruth Rodriguez. I'm from El Paso, Texas. I am a teacher at the Quinterly College Academy. I teach biology, anatomy, environmental science, and I'm up here in Barrow with the whole UTEP team. This is Dr. Vanessa Lougheed. She is my mentor when I was a graduate student, but she's also like the head PI and researcher extraordinaire. You can see we have another professor, Jeff Olimpo, and we have Dr. Craig Seedy, and we have a whole bunch of UTEP grads and undergrads. So we're all here doing some pretty fantastic stuff, and we also have a new addition to the team, good old Angus. So he keeps us on our toes. So up in Barrow, we have a research facility, and it's a really cool place, but they take care of pretty much any logistical issue that we have here or any researcher has here. There's a few labs in there. There's a cold room. There's a place where they do dissections, but they have conference rooms. But some of the logistical stuff that they offer bear guards, trucks, ATV, or if your battery runs out in the field, they're there to help you out. So. All right, so some of the projects that we have going, so we have 2 sets of teams up here in Barrow, and we have split it up to aquatics and the systems ecology, which is more terrestrial project-based. But the aquatics, which Vanessa heads, is we do a lot of stuff. So there's a lot of nutrient chemistry within the tundra ponds, the lakes, the rivers. We collect a lot of weather data, and we go out collecting the data that we have, the logging for the carbon sensors. The systems ecology is kind of different. So we have several projects going on today, and one of the, sorry. So for the systems, we have something called a phenocam. And what it does, it actually takes pictures of the terrain, but we can also take pictures of vegetation to see how everything is changed. So it's pretty awesome. Today we're actually going to go collect some more soil cores, and we have, I think we collected, I think we said this yesterday, right? Yeah. So yesterday they collected about 50 cores. We're going to take some back, and they'll analyze the sediment chemistry on those. But we also have a really fantastic boat that we're going to go out on. And today I'm going to head out with Craig to collect some more soil sediment, but we're also going to do the LiDAR today. So, and I'll explain some of the stuff that we're doing. So a really big thing that the systems lab does is the remote sensing. So for the remote sensing, it's taking a picture, and I actually asked Ryan yesterday, and it was down to the millimeter. So using the satellites, we can actually get a pretty good estimate of what's going on down here, and I'll talk more about some of that shortly. But the overarching questions that we have, how is global climate change affecting everything? And in Barrow, we can see these changes pretty much on a daily basis. So there was just the other day, some of the students, they couldn't go out to the site because the tide was too high, and if they would have been in the ocean. So, but other things that we want to do, try to bring all of this cool, fantastic science to El Paso. So not only to Clinton College, but to UTEP also. So I'll take it back to my class, and we'll start figuring out some labs that the general biology students can use at UTEP. So it's pretty awesome. Okay, so these are some of the technologies that I've used in the field since I've been here, and I think some of and I'm using pretty much on a daily basis. I'm getting a taste of everything. So one of the technologies is LiDAR, and what it is, it's a light detection system and ranging system, but it uses sensing, it uses lasers, it uses satellites. We get a pretty cool, fantastic 3D image of any given area. So I use that at Walakwa Beach. I'm going to use that today, and the only thing that kind of limits that is the weather. So if it's raining, it's kind of hard to get some of these images out there. So that's the only thing that could possibly limit that. The GPSs, they're like super enhanced GPSs that we can actually coordinate waypoints with satellites, and it's a pretty accurate, pretty accurate up to the millimeter. So pretty cool. Those are we use more in the terrain, but we also will use them in the aquatics, especially when we're trying to find out wetlands, stuff like that. The YSI multi-probe, it is fantastic. It makes an aquatic ecologist life ridiculously easy. So it collects pH, temperature, dissolved oxygen, conductivity, and sometimes chlorophyll. Yeah, we can actually get some chlorophyll on there. So we get a lot of really cool parameters from just one device, and I'll show you some pictures on the next one. We set up weather stations at pretty much most of our sites, just so that we can correlate the data that we get from the ponds to what's going on outside in the temperature. So I think I posted pictures on there so that you can actually see what these weather stations look like. We did that the first field day, and we'll take them down probably the last field day of the so. We do have some carbon loggers out there, and we used some during the BARC Science Fair, and I'll talk to you guys about that shortly. But we had some carbon issues with some of our technology. But I think we kind of figured them out, and we have a plan, so it worked out. But yeah, one of the biggest things that we're looking at is how carbon is changing all of these environments and what we can do about it. So, did I know any of this data before going on ROAM? Actually, yes. So as a graduate student, I use a lot of this information because this is not the ROAM trip I've been. So I went to Harnessa with Vanessa and Craig also, and I use a lot of the same technology. Granted, they've been like upgraded completely, but yeah, I'm a field biologist by nature and training, so I have used all of this stuff. So it was a good refresher course, especially going back into UTEP in about June, and I was just getting back to my field legs on. So typical day in the field for the aquatics team. So with the red beanie, you can actually see Fabian setting up the on that top right, little picture there. We're figuring everything out, and that's actually our first sampling site. So that was that IDP? Yeah, that's the IDP. So all of the different sites. Go ahead. I don't know what the character is doing there.
I'm not sure. We just might have gotten feedback from them. So keep going, Ruthie.
Oh, okay. I thought someone was asking a question. I thought but okay. But the first day out, I think that was probably the hardest day because everyone was figuring out who's gonna do what. But once you get a rhythm going, we're pretty much topping through each of the sample sites. But what we measure the water depth, the thaw depth, and sometimes the thaw depth can be a little tricky because you might fall into it. So that's the only bad thing about that. We collect sediment samples, and we'll usually leave a logger to actually collect some of that YSI data, and then we'll come back the next day and we'll actually just collect it, and then we'll analyze it later on in the field or organize it in the lab. So that's and then that'll be I should be to our next slide. So. Or not. Okay. So at the BARC, and that's our UTEP lab. It's a very organized chaos, so don't judge us. We have some of the team members will actually start filtering the water, and you can actually see the filters on the top right photo. And we'll actually analyze that for chlorophyll data. We'll do the dissolved organic carbon, and we'll actually prepare them, and we'll analyze them back to UTEP. So we'll separate the periphyton samples along with the phytoplankton samples, so the attached algae versus the free-floating algae, and we'll just freeze everything, make sure it's good to go, and then once we get to UTEP, everything gets analyzed again. So probably, what will we do with all the samples? Put them in the freezer. So once we put them in the freezer, then we'll figure that out once we get there. But yeah, we're going to take some tons of samples back to my school, and we'll actually have a lot of really cool experiments to run there in my biology classes, and it should be pretty exciting. So, but I think the hardest thing, and I think the students didn't realize this, was all the organization of data that you need to do. So yesterday was kind of a stay-in day, and they were organizing data for a good 3-4 hours, maybe more. But yeah, and it's good to learn that as an undergrad so that you can actually find out all the stuff that you need to do and how important Excel is and all the other technologies that you'll need. So it's a good learning thing. So how many are we collecting? Pretty much every day. So yeah, or every other day. 4 or 5 samples a day. Yeah, 4 samples a day. So well, we have different sites. We have a few ponds at the IDP, a few at the VO. We have a lake, Cape Lake, and then the Footprint River. Footprint, yeah. So yeah, we have a few sites. So yeah.
Do all of the students, do you all go out together, or do all the students have a different project?
So we all go out together, and they all do have different projects, but all of the data that they collect is used as a collective. So if someone's just collecting the water samples, they'll use that data on another project. So some of the projects that they have, they're going to be comparing the sites. So tundra ponds versus lakes versus rivers, just how, let's see, the nutrient chemistry. There's going to be a lot of things. We had initially hoped to actually see the differences in carbon, but we ran into the problem. So, yeah, what are things?
Open water versus vegetative sites.
So the open water and versus some of the sites that have tons of vegetation. So it's a pretty distinct just by looking at them. So it's a total change from El Paso. Like one of the first things you notice is a mountain. So yeah, it's a pretty big difference. So we'll get into that. And then for the field day, so I've actually got to go on a few field days with the systems lab, and those are pretty tough, I'm not going to lie. It's a lot of lugging around a lot of like heavy gear. The LiDAR and on the top photo, that's actually calculating the GPS. Stephen in the blue hoodie, he's actually marking different waypoints, and there are actually two archaeologists that are next to him, and they're writing down points. So to use the LiDAR, they're going to set up 5 tripods, and on top of those tripods, there's going to be these reflectors. And what those reflectors do, they send signals to each other so that we can create a 3D image. And collecting the data, that's a longer time because you actually, Ryan Cody, he's the guy that's collecting all this data. He actually physically moves from tripod to tripod, collecting all of those data points, and that can be a little arduous. But one of the other things is actually making sure each of the tripods is actually level. If they're not, oh, hold on, Adobe's trying to update. So if they're not level, then they won't get a clear signal. Another thing that can mess stuff up is if there's people in the way. So at that point, we were trying to image sites on the beach, and there was tons of archaeologists right in the middle. So we actually had to tell them that we had to move in order for us to collect the data. So yeah, it was a kind of time-consuming process. So yeah, we can be in the field for a good 2-3 hours just collecting LiDAR data.
Mom, you want to say hi?
Mom, I'm okay. So for the systems lab at the bar, what they do, they got to prepare pretty much for the day-to-day basis. So they got to charge all the batteries that they take into the field, and it's going to be ridiculously cold out there. There's mosquitoes. And they got to make sure all their equipment is ready to go for the next day. So these guys will go out. Pretty much they've gone out every day since we've been here, unless there's been a really bad weather day. There's fog out there. But they do spend a lot of time downloading the data, making sure everything is good to go. So yeah, that's pretty much the life of a systems ecologist. It's a lot of doing the same things over, making sure everything is good. So yeah, if anything, they do a lot of computer work also. So.
Have you seen anything striking or unexpected? You know, this is actually kind of a unique year. I think every team this year has seen something that they haven't seen before. Like in our ponds, there's a new plant, not a new plant, a plant that used to be really not very abundant, that's really increased in abundance. Mm-hmm. I know the wildlife biologists here have also found a new plant up here that we think is a range record for that plant. And Craig was telling me something the other day. I think every team is just sort of noticing a couple interesting things this year. It was a relatively warm winter, and it's just sort of the environment is changing up here. And I'm not saying that's good or bad. It's just there's new things that we're seeing, which is pretty interesting.
So how far from the bark are your sensors?
It depends. So we drive to our sites, which are 3-4 miles away, and walk another mile to get to them. But Craig today and Ruthie actually are going to go be on the boat for about 2-3 hours on a boat to get to one of the sites down the coast. So they're all over.
Yeah, and there's actually a lot of, and I'll try to upload some of the websites so you can actually see some of the sites that we're actually using. So on the base website is actually run by UTEP. So I'll post some of that so that you guys can actually see the differences, and you can see all of the research that's going on in there. So it is pretty cool to see just how different everything is. So some of the cool stuff, and we've been doing a lot of stuff. The Walaco Beach archaeological excavation. So this project is totally, as much as I would like to say, is community-based. It is. So all the archaeologists that were on duty, they're all volunteers. So what the Systems Lab did, they actually went out and they did the whole dig site, and they're going to image it. Yeah, they're going to image it with LiDAR so that they can get a really awesome view of stuff. So in that second picture, you can actually see a really well-preserved ring seal.
The second from left
there, yeah. I don't know if you can see it, but yeah. So yeah, and they had one there, and it's just by the time that they head back next season, they're predicting a whole bunch of stuff is just going to be lost due to erosion. So they're trying to get as much stuff done in a very short amount of time. So anything that if we could help, it's pretty cool. So the BARC, the Barrow Arctic Research Center, they had their first science fair, and they had a lot of kids there. So pretty much each day there was maybe about
150 kids.
Maybe well over 100 kids every day, and all the researchers, they presented, they did activities with the kids, and they had a great time. So it was pretty fun. So so that's
what's that? We'll tell them about the activity that you're running.
So the activity that you can see me running on that first one, we have carbon sensors, and the kids got to see how much carbon is actually being taken up or released in different tundra environments. So that morning, me and Jeff Filippo, we actually went out and collected a whole bunch of little tundra pieces. We froze a few. We had some, they were just all different types of spots. And kids got to see how much carbon they were actually putting out and how much the plants were actually taking back in. So it was pretty interesting. One of the other activities that kids got to do, because a lot of these kids are native Utqiaġvik, so they got to learn about whaling harpoons. So they made mini harpoons. I don't know if I'm going to do a lesson on that at school. That's probably dangerous because those were real, ivory tips, and they had a lot of fun. So we've been getting a good taste of a lot of stuff. So
GPS candy hunt.
Oh, then we also did a GPS scavenger hunt, and so Craig actually hit a whole bunch of candy in the tundra, and using GPS, these guys got to find waypoints, and I was totally surprised how good these kids are with the GPS device. So yeah, it's pretty awesome.
Fun.
There was a question about from Jennifer about how do you see this experience affecting the undergrads, and do you see them coming up with new thoughts and ideas?
Yeah, the future development project, and you can see now that they're analyzing their data, they're really, really excited about it. We have 8 undergrads here, and they all are really getting. We're kind of trying to get them to wrap up their projects, at least partly, before they leave, and you can really see them sort of developing. But what's cool about the undergrads too is that they also volunteered at the science fairs. Mm-hmm. So they were helping us. We had little tanks full of daphnia and aquatic plants, and they were showing the local kids stuff at the science fair too. So they've been participating in every aspect of what we've been doing here.
Okay. Another question from Edmund. What role does permafrost play in your research?
All of our projects have something to do with permafrost. So in the aquatic environment, we find that with the permafrost thawing, it's releasing a lot of nutrients into the ponds, and also thaw probably deepens groundwater paths and results in more groundwater flow into the ponds. And then Craig's work along the coast has to do with permafrost also, because with permafrost thaw, the coasts are weakened, and you see a lot more slumping into the ocean soil and those sorts of things.
Okay, great. And
Is that the last one? I think. Okay.
did you get to this question earlier? How far from bark are your sensors?
Yeah, we did answer that one. Mm-hmm. So for this, we have 20 people from UTEP here right now. So the question was, how did someone get chosen to go? We have 20 people from UTEP here right now. I'd say about 6 of them are grad students, and so this is part of their research for their graduate school. And then all of the undergrads were chosen. They took a course with us in the spring with a quantitative methods course on Arctic data, and so we learned about Arctic ecosystems and we analyzed Arctic data, and students who were in that class got the opportunity to apply to come to the Arctic with us. And so they already had experience with analyzing data and reading Arctic literature, and then they applied and had an interview, and they got chosen that way. And next summer we'll be running the program again, and so the same format will apply, where we'll run a course in the spring, teach students a little bit, and then they get the opportunity to come up and apply their knowledge. Are they getting credit for the project? Students were, it wasn't obligatory, but they are able to get credit, yeah. So I think 5 of the undergrads are getting credit, upper division, either research credit or field biology credit for being here.
And Ruthie, well, we wait for other questions to come in. What has it been like for you to work with the undergrads?
Kind of similar to what it is working with high school students. They still have the same kind of like issues. It takes them the time to get going and to kind of focus with stuff, but once they get into a groove, they're on it. So I think a lot of their nervous issues where they don't know what to expect, and it's the Arctic. There's a lot of unexpected stuff to do. So falling into ponds, that's the huge. So yeah, you just kind of have to get used to it, look it up, get to change your spots and get back in there. So yeah, and it's been as much as I would like to. These guys they got really good at what they're doing. So it's pretty cool.
Our first few days here, we had horrendous. Actually, this is another thing we've noticed a change. The first few days here, all of the scientists were saying it was among the worst mosquitoes we've seen up here. For 3 consistent days, it was just psychological warfare by mosquito, and we were just, and it was amazing because it's not usually that sustained for that long up here. And so when you finally did get cold, rainy, miserable weather, the students were loving it because they preferred that over the mosquitoes any day. So right now it's drizzly and cloudy, but they love it because at least there's no mosquitoes.
Yeah, it was actually really warm, so it was like
it was
hot.
Well, it was 20 Celsius,
yeah.
like that, like 70.
Like
it was in the low 70s here, which is really unusual.
Yeah, and it was like
T-shirt weather.
normal, like fantastic weather minus mosquitoes. So yeah. Pretty cool.
And then Judy has a question. Are all of the students embracing being in the Arctic now?
Yeah, well, like I said, they all were sort of, the first cold, rainy, miserable day, I remember Louise said, this is why we came here. This is the weather we were waiting for. So they're a great crew of students, and, you know, they're having a great time, and I haven't heard a single complaint. So.
Yeah, it's a good change from El Paso, and if anything, it's cool for these guys to actually get out and see all the stuff that they have UTEP has to offer. And I think that's another thing people don't understand. UTEP's in the Arctic. UTEP's been to the Antarctic, and they don't realize all the stuff that it does have to offer. So, pretty awesome.
So Edmund asked, how will this experience change your curriculum, Ruthie?
Okay, so Ms. Mark and everybody in service, I am planning to run an Arctic-themed biology class. So that's gonna be on my little. I already forgot what the whole thing is called. But for one of my goals is I'm going to put an Arctic theme and an Arctic twist on everything that I'm gonna do this year. So yeah, I think it should be pretty cool and pretty fun. So. My dad.
Oh, so I don't know what the question is related to, but how much will it cost?
The whole science. Sorry, Miss Falcon, I'm taking it off.
All right, let's see what other questions we have coming up here. And while we're waiting, how much longer are you guys going to be there, and what's the plan when you get back to Texas?
We leave on Thursday.
Thursday night. So.
Yeah, and the plan is, well, one of the things we still need to do is we're collecting some, like Ruthie said, some cores here. One of the main projects that we're going to be trying to run in freshman labs at UTEP, but also in the biology at college, are, taking tundra cores, incubating them under different conditions, and seeing how they, and measuring carbon and teaching kids about photosynthesis and respiration and climate change using those cores. And so that's one of the main collaborations we want to continue over the next year. But like Ruthie said, she's going to try to incorporate some other cool local things into her class.
We'll make it work. We'll make it work. Yeah, and if anything, I was already asking some of these guys to come and talk to the class, just so that they can see, because we do have some freshmen and juniors who are already undergraduates. They can see all the cool stuff that's available to them. So it's pretty fun.
Excellent. Well, let's see if we have anybody else with questions. So far, we have Tundra in El Paso. Neat. That sounds fun. And then we had, I don't know if you saw, Michael said, you two have given a great presentation, very thorough. Judy wanted to know, will you continue working with Vanessa on other projects, Ruthie?
I will. So since I graduated in 2009, I've worked with Vanessa on a variety of projects since then. So yeah, definitely.
And then Sarah said, will your class be able to review this? I don't know if they mean the archive. Yes, we will. You can share the archive, but I'm sure you'll also be sharing and having Vanessa and Craig and others join you since you guys are all in the same vicinity in your actual classroom, which will be a great opportunity.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
All right. So while people are typing things, I know that you guys need to go catch a boat this afternoon or this morning before the weather gets terrible up there. Great job on your presentation, and it's been fun following your journals. And we look forward to hearing how your last days in Utqiaġvik go, and maybe we'll just see what else is going on, and then we'll stop this archive, and we'll again share it with everybody online so that you can review it. And I will, when I do stop the archive, any family or friends that want to open their microphones and say hello are sure welcome to do so at that time. Okay. And in the meantime, there's one more question. Dave wrote, are you doing any research on methane releases from permafrost? That's snuck in there.
That is a great question, and that was supposed to be one of our student projects, was doing methane release. And basically the second day we got here, we realized that our methane analyzer was broken, and so that project was dumped. And it will definitely be one of the projects we're doing next summer, but the methane analyzer, we just shipped it back to UTEP because it was just a big, heavy paperweight. It wasn't working. We tried. It was our intent. So that's next summer's task.
Very cool. Yeah, and there was another question that snuck in there from Yadira. Since UTEP has been in Alaska for the last few years, keeps going away on me. Have you guys noticed more awareness in the Alaska region with regards to climate change and the social cost that carbons possess?
I think there's more of an awareness here of the effect of climate change. They definitely notice the effect on the erosion, the local people. There's definitely a knowledge of how it affects their subsistence harvesting and what their whaling season looks like and what their seal and walrus hunting looks like. It's affecting those things. They're seeing new fish here, a salmon. They're seeing salmon here. They've never really seen salmon before. And so there's definitely an awareness of climate change and how it's affecting their lifestyles, definitely.
Yeah, and even talking to the kids, a lot of these kids already know like a ton of stuff, and like young kids, they know a lot of stuff about carbon. So whatever they're doing, it's working. So and they always have community nights with researchers. So the researchers here, they're doing their part. So it's a good thing.
It's fun.
Yeah, very good. All right. Again, thank you very much for your presentation, Ruthie and Vanessa, and all the great questions from the audience here. And if you didn't get to ask a question or something comes up, be sure to post it